All right, hey everybody, it's Thursday night. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. It's Greg LaBeouf here with you. I have coaches Dustin and Brad with me as usual. And tonight it's going to be a really cool conversation. I hope you guys stick with us. What I'm going to share with you tonight, we're going to have a conversation and I'm going to share with you how I learned to be ruthless without losing my compassion. All right, everybody, stick with us. It's going to be a good one.
Many people understand that they can at any time become the target of a violent criminal assault. These same people know that they have a life, family, and property worth defending. Criminals understand that violence is its own language. Violence is not the sport of competition. Violence is not the art of fighting. Violence is about one thing: destruction. There are those who believe that violence, even in self-defense, is morally wrong. Then there are good people like you who know that defending yourself, family, and others, as well as your property, is not only a personal right, but a duty within a civilized society. Understand, violent assaults are won before they occur. People who learn strategy survive. People who do not will not. For those brave people who believe life is precious and worth defending,
welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, everybody. Okay, so we're back. Listen, I said that what I want to talk about tonight is I'm going to talk about how I learned to be ruthless without losing my compassion. Because what happens when you talk about, inevitably, when we talk about ruthlessness, a lot of people, that it paints a picture. And first off, let me maybe start by just giving a basic definition of ruthlessness. And ruthlessness, in the dictionary, they define it as the quality of lacking pity or compassion. Now, I'll just make a quick parallel because a lot of people, if we talk about sociopaths, they talk about the lack of empathy, right? They don't have any remorse. They have no empathy for other people. So when we're talking about ruthlessness, we're talking about the quality of lacking pity or compassion. But why I wanted to delve into this tonight is because this is absolutely one of the most important attributes when it comes to weaponized against violence. Okay, so let's start here because if I pull back one from ruthlessness, we would talk about killer instinct. And we did a podcast on killer instinct not that long ago, but I will define killer instinct as there's two components that make up killer instinct. Now, ruthlessness, killer instinct, and the component that makes it up is viciousness. So I think killer instinct, and then I think viciousness and ruthlessness. Okay? So just kind of collapse, ruthlessness and viciousness collapse into the primary folder of killer instinct. Killer instinct is an attribute as well as a quality. Like it is a tangible thing, but it is also an attribute. It's a mindset. So when we expand it out, we're going to talk about ruthlessness. That also is a thing that you can put action to. You can take an action, a physical action, that is ruthless in nature. And if we look at the definition, lacking pity or compassion. So we can physically do that. But ruthlessness is also an attribute. It's a quality. There's a state of mind that goes with it. So the only thing that I'm trying to establish to people is when we have this conversation, you have to understand that it is not just physical actions that constitute ruthlessness, killer instinct, or viciousness. It is also an attitude. It's like speech. There's words, but then there's the tone to the words. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. And that can change the meaning of it. So that's what I want people to have a feeling. When we talk ruthlessness, you can look at ruthlessness from the context of evil. Right? Evil men, evil women, evil people doing evil things to innocent people. But we also have to understand that we can talk about ruthlessness from the standpoint of good. And that's why this is such an important part of the conversation. So maybe let me just set this whole thing up with a story. When I was going down, because I want to share how I got over it. When I first met my instructors, there was something about them. And it was really, really tough to put into words what it was, because overtly they were very nice. They were super open and relaxed, and you just felt at ease when you were around them. There was nothing odd about them in the sense that, like, you know, nothing made the little hairs on your back of your neck stand up. There wasn't this, you know, sometimes when you meet people for the first time, you know, there's like an awkwardness to that situation. This was exactly the opposite. There was no awkwardness. It was like you know, they were friends. It's like I'd known them my entire life. So there was this very endearing quality to them. But there was something different about them that I could not put my finger on initially. And then as I started to train with them, as they started to talk, and I'll tell you literally the first 30 minutes that I met them. In the first 30 minutes, there is this warm, open, like, feel like you know these guys your whole life, kind of like, whoa, puts you at ease. And that's when we were just talking as people, as men. Then we started training. And the second that he started talking about violence and started talking about, you know, combat, and at the time, my instructor was working with the Navy SEALs at the time. So he was home on leave during that period, and you know, there was something different. And so the second he started talking about violence, it was like a switch flipped. And the switch that flipped wasn't all of a sudden I was scared. It wasn't I was worried. These guys were crazy and psycho and all this other stuff. It wasn't. There was this energy. This, you could see it in the eyes, you could see it in their physiology, you could hear it in the tone of their voice, yet there was still this softness to it. Or really it was peaceful in a way. It was the weirdest contradictory thing to have this energy and yet this feeling of peace around it, wrapped around it. And I remember just being like captivated. And I knew right there, I was like, I want that. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't define it. I wanted that. Matter of fact, Paul used to tell me, my instructor, Paul used to say, trying to teach somebody about killer instinct, ruthlessness, or viciousness is like trying to teach somebody what sweet tastes like if they've never tasted sweet. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you describe it? Imagine never someone that was born blind and trying to explain to them colors, like a rainbow or something. It's hard. And so there was this feeling, and I remember just saying, that's what I wanted. And so I'm just going to fast forward a little bit because I think it was probably 2 years into my training, 3 years maybe. And I remember I was having difficulty, right? So I'd go down there, I'd spend a few months down there, and I would come back to Canada here, come back to Edmonton for a couple months. I'd go back down, and every 2 months I was back down there for a period, an extended period. And so one of them, they were working on this part of our strategies we call it the avalanche now, but called termination. And this is how you take bigger, stronger people out of commission. This is how, if you have to take life to preserve life, this is how you do it. The natural, most brutally efficient tools in the body. Here's how you relay injury to a human being and break the body down to the point that either they're no longer a threat or they cease to exist. So very intense stuff. And I remember they gave me some specific training methodologies. I came back and I was practicing these things. And I was trying to train them. And I remember I had a couple guys, but I had one guy that was like a monster. This guy was like, I don't know, 6'8", like I'm 6'4". He was like 6'8". He was, 300 plus pounds, and he was in a phenomenal shape. Like, I mean, the guy was just in great shape. And so I remember every time that I would try to get into termination, every time I'd try to get close quarter and try to relay this destruction on him, even though we're just training it, but I'm trying to use forward pressure, I'm trying to do all these things. I kept getting tossed. It was like, my analogy is like every time I got on the bull, I got bucked off. I couldn't establish a point of dominance. I couldn't establish uninterrupted opportunities for, gouging, headbutt, knee and elbow, and all that type of stuff. So I couldn't do it. And I was getting so frustrated because everything I tried to correct it, he was circumventing it. And he was just having a natural, again, like a bull response, like I'm going to buck and this guy's going to fly off. And that's exactly what happened. And so I went back, I remember going back down, and I was back there with my instructors, and they said, listen, where are you at? How things been going? And I started to explain it to them. And they were like, okay, well, show me what you're doing. And so I remember we were moving around. I was moving with them, and they were feeding me this energy, this really aggressive energy, because they were simulating, big, strong, aggressive guy. And I kept trying to get to termination. And every time the same result. I kept failing. And I kept sitting there saying, listen, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, technically, like, tactics, what am I doing wrong? And I remember he stopped and he's like, listen, your head's in the wrong space. You're not doing anything technically wrong. You're using the right strategy, the right tactic, and you're using the right tools, and you're doing them with a more than adequate level of proficiency. And I was like, well, if all that's true, then why the fuck is it not working? Because if I'm using the right strategy, the right tactics, and the right tools, and I have the proficiency, the capability to do it, then why the fuck am I not getting the result? The only thing it could be then is that this shit doesn't work. That was the wrong thing to say. Because he said, okay, I'm going to show you. And I remember being like, okay. So he's like, you feed me now. You play the bad guy. I'm going to show you. And I remember, you get ready, you're trying to feed, and he's, took a little bit of coaching to get me. He's like, no, do it right. Like, commit to it. Like, 100%. And I was like, oh, okay. So I remember, like, okay, getting in mind, I'm going to fucking do this, going. And the next thing I remember is fucking being scraped up off the fucking ground. And it was just this pressure, this energy that I'd never felt before. And at that moment, I mean, I'll be honest, I was terrified. And I remember thinking, yeah, but that's what I want. And right away, my brain said, yeah, but that's because he's better than me. He's better than me, right? This is my instructor, of course. This is the guy teaching the Navy SEALs. Of course you can do that because your technique is better. Your attributes are better. You're this better. You're that better. You have more experience. You're, all of the shit. But we went, literally, that's what we did. That was like, this was all half an hour into our training day, and it literally shut everything down, and he said, we're going for lunch. I'm like, lunch? It's fucking barely even breakfast. But we went out for lunch. And we sat down, and he's like, ordered us, I think it was 2 shots and 2 beers, and those were just for him. And then he said, what do you want? And I ordered a shot and a beer. I thought I'd better do what he's doing. We had a couple drinks, and we started talking. And what was so important about this is what this long-winded story is for. This is the secret for how I figured out how to be ruthless, and then I'll share with you how you doing it this way allows you to keep your compassion. He said, what just happened in that moment has nothing to do with skill, has nothing to do with experience, has nothing to do with techniques, strategies, or tactics, or tools, has nothing to do with any of that shit. What the difference was I had more ruthlessness than you. I had more killer instinct than you. I was more vicious than you. And I thought, yeah, okay, I get all that, and I agree with it, but I don't understand that. You're just saying words that I don't know how do I get that? And he said, let me put it another way. I have stronger beliefs than you. And that stopped me. Because right away I was like, well, what do you mean you have stronger beliefs than me? He said, I have a stronger belief in my right to life. I have a stronger belief in my right to liberty, my freedom, and my fucking security. I have a stronger belief than you do. And this started to change the context for me. This started to move my perception 1 degree over to where I started to see killer instinct, ruthlessness, and viciousness from a very different light. You see, ruthlessness, the quality of lacking pity or compassion. And for the first time, I was like, you have a stronger belief in your right to life. Like, you get like, a stronger belief in your right to life. And I had to really think about that. What does that mean to have a strong belief? Like, do you believe in your right to life, your right to live? And he's like, I have that fucking belief. There's zero doubt. That is a conviction inside of me. And he goes, do you understand that if ruthlessness is a lacking of pity or compassion, understand that how that lack of pity or what triggers that? You see, there's a guy that can be driving in his car, see a dog walking across the street, and fucking aim for that dog and run that thing over with no pity or no compassion. Why? Why the fuck did he do that? Well, he's probably got some sort of a belief that fucking animals, that he fucking hates dogs, or animals are fucking worthless. They're not, who gives a shit? Or he's missing that empathy altogether, I don't know. But the point is, there is a belief at the core of that. And that allows him to take an action on that belief where he goes, I don't fucking pity that animal. Animals aren't fucking humans. Fuck that thing. So he has no compassion for this, and he takes an action. And when he goes and aims for that, he does it where he is 100% invested. Does that start to paint the picture? 100% invested. And so just one belief where he's talking about the right to life, and I'm going to throw one more part to this, and then I'll let you guys chime in on this. I was sitting there I was chewing on this, right? I'm trying to unpack this. And I'm sitting there and just going I've never thought, imagine this. I never thought about when I'm trying to get into determination and you're trying to use all the strategies, tactics, and tools. I never thought about why. I never thought about what my beliefs are. I didn't understand. Because your beliefs are your emotional fuel. And then when he said that, and remember, I had just come from him fucking like freight training me. But he didn't do it with power. He didn't do it with speed and size and strength and capability. He fucking did it with the power of his beliefs. He was 100% invested. And when he pulled the trigger and went in to get determination on me, he was fueled by his belief that here's the second part of this. Because he believed in his right to life. And even in this training, the second we started moving around and I presented the threat energy to him, he had the belief. He saw the sign. Remember, I fed him the pins. I showed him through my body language, my behavior, my interpersonal communication that I was about to deliver imminent grievous bodily harm or death upon him. So in his mind, when he felt that energy, he went, I believe in my right to fucking live. And then the second part is he believed because of everything that I was presenting, what he was seeing, what was actually happening, the facts, he believed that he was going to die that day. You know how powerful it is to have this guy who's contracted out to teach the SEAL teams, and when you're training with them, and he's standing across from you, and he is who he is, and I am who I am, and he's sitting there going, in that moment, the second that you took on that persona of a threat to me, that activated, that hit the tripwire in my right to be like, this guy thinks he gets to play God and wipe me off the face of the earth. And then he goes, look at all the signs, this guy. I believe that he's going to try to kill me today. I may die here today. And the second that just those two beliefs, there's others, but the second that those two beliefs were activated, what did he have at his disposal all of a sudden? He had a fucking strong why. He had mental, emotional, physiological, and physical juice. And in that moment, where was his pity? Where was his compassion? It didn't exist. In that moment, it suspended itself. Because he believes in his right to life, and he believed that imminent grievous bodily harm or death was about to be delivered upon him. And so he was able to access a ruthlessness, a lack of pity, a lack of compassion. He built his beliefs. I have no compassion for somebody that would try to murder me. And that all shut off. And all of a sudden, he had no psychic hindrance. He was free. You get what I mean when I say free? He was free to take strategy, tactics, and tools and deliver them with 100% ruthlessness. And I'll pause at this point, and I want you guys to jump in on this and just give me any and all feedback you have up until this point.
One thing I'll kind of add in, when you first started talking about it and you defined ruthlessness for people and you said, it's a place of no pity and a lack of compassion. The thing that kind of hit me right away, because I've obviously heard it defined that way before, is almost like I can almost expand that definition one more step just for me. I mean, other people too, and it's almost like, accepting no compromise. And I think what I mean by that, or why that resonated with me, why it hit me, is kind of what you just actually ended up talking about. It's because I have such a strong conviction that somebody else doesn't get to choose whether I live or die. Like, that's between me and God. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think for me, that's really what when I say no compromise, it's like, you don't get to choose whether I live or die today. So I'm not willing to compromise on that. I believe I have the right to life. Therefore, I feel no hindrance in going through my strategy, tactics, and tools as I see fit to preserve my own life. Right. And it comes back to that conviction and the belief in that. And so that was the first thing that hit me anyway.
It's beautiful. I love it. Brad, you want to throw some stuff in?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really, I'm not, the word stuck isn't what it is, but I'm really focused on the word compassion, right? And how, we're kind of having the conversation a little bit regarding that. And I think about, where you are lacking pity or compassion with ruthlessness. And, it's like, I think about being in that situation, and it's like, the versus the opposite side of compassion, or of that energy that I would put onto somebody with my lack of compassion towards them. I really feel that it's like, because all of the other things that I have compassion for in my life allows me to do that. Like my self-worth, my family, my belief systems, those sorts of things allows me to, remove the compassion, remove pity, and have that ruthlessness when I envision myself being in that type of situation. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. You're talking about the yin and yang. You're talking about the back and
Right.
forth.
Yeah, because you know what? Like, it really, again, I know that we've had this conversation before, but like, one of the things that it made me think about is having love and having the people. I don't defend myself because of the dangers that's in front of me, but it's for the people that are behind me, my family, my loved ones, and sort of those sorts of things. And that I took that idea, and with compassion, it's like allows you to have lack of compassion in that moment towards violence.
Yeah.
I think
Go
I'll
ahead.
add one more thing.
Yeah.
Is just I think also, like, it's me. Part of why you can detach from that compassion is because you're not choosing this. None of us are going out there looking for trouble. We're not looking to start shit. We're not looking to cause problems for people. We're the exact opposite. The first thing any one of us would ever do, just remove ourselves from the situation. We got nothing to prove. We have no ego. We left that shit behind decades ago. And so I think it's like, if someone puts me in a situation where my life or my family's life or innocent person's life is at risk, it's like, you chose this. You chose to put us here. I didn't go looking for this. So, whatever happens, it's not my fault because you put us here, being the violent criminal. And so it's like, so why would I have to have compassion when you chose this? You put yourself here. You could have walked away too, and you didn't. So I think it makes it easier to not have pity, to not have compassion, because we're not out seeking this sort of stuff. We're just willing to do it if the situation requires it.
Yeah. Both of you made some great points on this, and there's one thing that let's just throw this in right now, because it's a bit of a caveat, but to people maybe that are new to the podcast or new to our mindset and our training philosophies, this is very important, right? Because what I want to share with people, what I want to get across, is I want you to understand, because this is what I'm imaging right now, right? I'm imaging somebody out there that's listening to this, and they're sitting in their garage, they're riding in their car, they're sitting at their house, and this person is 100% invested in wanting to be their family's protector, right? They want to be there. They want to say, listen, if there's a real threat that is facing my family, I'm the first line of defense. The police aren't going to be there in time, so it's me. And as they're sitting there, they've gone and tried martial arts. And they go, fuck this. This is not what I'm looking for. So they're doing it on their own. Okay, because this was me, right? I mean, if I hadn't have got connected with my instructors, which was a minor miracle in itself, I had done the martial. Like, it all failed me. I was by myself. I felt this. So I want these people to hear how I did this, because the lesson that it took for me, and I don't want to lose this, right? Because we're talking about compassion, and it's too easy to say, oh, I have love, so therefore I don't have to have compassion. And it's like, yeah, but how? Because you can sit there and be like, yeah, I love my family, and someone's trying to kill my kid. And you think, oh, if they try to fuck with my kid, I'll kill them. And it's like, yeah, I believe you feel that. I do. But when you put your hands on some other person, you feel the life force in them. And on some, there's so many things that happen that it's hard for you to deny your. Now, maybe you do kill him because of what he did to your kid, and then after you could be set up for this psychological trauma. But what I experienced, this is just me. What I experienced is it was fucking hard. I'll just be straight with you. It's like not every situation is some fucking crazy power predator, pedophile that's trying to murder your child, and therefore you feel all of this emotional juice and all of this conviction and you kill him. It's a lot of times it's simpler than that. It's some fucking guy coming up going, hey, you got to smoke. And you're like, sorry, man, I don't smoke. And the guy's, enter the fucking ass. And all of a sudden you're in a life and death situation and you're like, what the fuck is this over? You see, the times when the reason for ruthlessness and killer instinct is not clear, what the fuck do you do then? Because that's what happens 99% of the time. This ain't fucking Hollywood. It's not some terrorist organization wipes your family out. You go on the vendetta, hunt them down overseas with all your elite training. You hunt them down and you kill them mercilessly and ruthlessly like fucking Rambo or whoever. That's not how it works. It's over nothing. That's how good people are murdered, over fucking nothing. Over a cigarette, over a fucking TV or some stupid other fucking reason. In this moment, when you have another human being who is bent on fucking murdering you, destroying you over nothing, you don't have the moral ground to go, you fucked with my kid. That's not a direct link. So again, you have to go, what is it that allowed you to become ruthless without becoming a fucking sadistic motherfucker? How do you keep your compassion? It's your beliefs. So when I say that it was my belief, like I heard him, remember, I'm not there yet. I'm telling the story from the perspective of I felt what he did and I'm hearing what he's telling me. He's telling me, Greg, I believe in my right to life more than you do. And I'm like, Jesus, man, I believe in my right to life. I had people try to murder me. That's why I'm here, because I believe in my right to not be fucking murdered, dude. And he goes, no, I believe in my right to life more than you. And I was like, fuck. He's not saying I don't have that belief. He's saying I believe in it more. I've thought about it. This is exactly what you guys are talking about. I have spent years thinking about it, building it up, to a level of a conviction. What does it really mean? Peeling back the layers. And then he said, remember that I believed, even in training, he goes, I believe I was going to die here today. I believe that you were about to deliver grievous bodily harm or death. And I remember, like, how did you get there in training when you know that I can't do that to you? I wasn't going to do that and I can't do it to you. How did you get there? Because of, again, the power of working the process of believing. He said that day, he goes, I'm 100% invested. And I thought about that. And I started for years after that, I started measuring everything I did on that scale. Meaning every time that I would enter on someone or try to drive in or get determination, I would ask myself, what was that? Was that 90%, 99%, or was it 100%? And you know what was funny? What kept popping up in me was every time I would do it in training, I could not separate that I knew the person. I could not separate that this was just training. So every time I went at the person, I held something back. And when you're training and you hold back even 1% or 5%, right? Like there's a difference between thresholding your tools physically and holding back mentally and emotionally. Mentally and emotionally, you can commit to the attack, to whatever you're doing, 100%. And yet physically, you can threshold your tools so that you're not injuring the other person. True or false?
True.
True, right? You guys can, social proof, you can testify to that. It's 100% capable.
Yeah.
My instructor did it to me. How many times have I done it to you? How many times have you guys done it to other clients? You can go 100% at somebody, 100% invested, and yet threshold so that they're 100% safe. But it takes time to learn that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you guys have a story you can relate about that, about having felt that and what that feels like? Because I want people to understand that to be true. Because otherwise, it sounds like every time you train, you got to try to kill each other, and that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, I could think of it's like, where do you start? Because there's countless times where you're just like, you find yourself in a wall and you're kind of turtled and you're like, what the fuck? Like, how did I get from over there to over here with the forward pressure coming in? And it's like, but I'm fine. Like, I'm not injured. It's like the pressure comes, and all the motions happen, but I'm like, I'm not getting hit. I'm not taking pain. So that's just it. I think that's the word that maybe I should focus on is I'm not experiencing pain. I'm experiencing the pressure of someone coming forward with me with intent, right? And that's way different than someone just punching at you and actually hitting you, but without intent. Like they're two completely different worlds. And to feel one, it's like you're like, okay, I know, like, and being around as long as I have, it's like I know that was intent. And if the back end of the actual execution of the tool or whatever, then it's like, okay, like you didn't need that because the intent was behind it. That's just the last, I don't know, 3% of that motion or that
Yes.
that experience. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. You feel the ruthlessness. That's the same thing that mowed me over with Paul. He literally put me on the ground. Yeah, there was some physical touching to it, but he was touching me 1%.
Yeah.
But his ruthlessness and killer instinct and viciousness completely overwhelms you.
And being on the other side of that, when you're receiving that, you could feel the essence be like, that person is willing to fucking kill me.
Person's willing to come. Yep.
You know,
It's real for them.
That was the intent behind their actions. But Thresh held to not deliver injury or pain.
Yes.
Yeah, I think just to kind of continue on the same thread of what Brad's talking about, like with pressure, but kind of maybe more focusing on like physically what you're feeling on both ends of it. You know, for me, it's like let's say if you're being entered on, someone's coming at you with that type of pressure that Brad's talking about, versus if they come at you without it. Like they might be trying to do it, but mentally they're not there. So yeah, physically they're coming for it. I think the difference is like when someone comes at you and they're not mentally there, they don't have that level of ruthlessness. They're pushing you back, and maybe you're kind of stumbling a bit. So it's like, yeah, okay, you kind of maybe you're giving it to them or whatever. Versus when someone really does it to you, there's no choice anymore. Like you're ass over tea kettle because that pressure is so much more intense when it's done properly. That like all choices removed. It's not you just backing up fast for somebody. You're being bowled over when you're on that side of it. And then I think when you're on the other side, when you're the one going forward with pressure, I think if your mind says yes, but your ass says no, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to feel like effort. It's going to feel like a fight. They're going to be swinging and doing whatever, and it's going to be chaotic, and it's not going to feel good. Yeah. And you know right away, like anybody who's ever done what we do, and they've tried to go for like, smash and grab somebody with that kind of pressure, and it's not there. Oh man, you know right away. You're like, fuck, I fucked that up, because it just doesn't go well. Like it just doesn't go well if it's not done with the right, emotional content.
Yeah.
Versus when you do it right, it's effortless.
Yes.
And it's kind of one of those funny things. It's like going forward like that. It's one of the hardest things to do, but yet if you do it the right way, it's the easiest thing. Yeah. But you got to do it the right way. Do you know what I mean?
And that comes back to where you got to get your beliefs straight, because working killer instinct, ruthlessness, and viciousness is not a physical endeavor in the beginning. There's a tail end to that. It's the 80-20. It's working your belief system.
And you want to test your belief system. I think to kind of allude to what you were talking about, Greg. Yeah, train it with one of your closest friends. That'll test your belief system. That'll test where your convictions are, because you're gonna have a harder time, like you said, tapping into that when it's like, oh yeah, but this is just Greg. This is just Brad. We're just training. Yep. So if you can do it then, well then it's gonna be, for sure you can do it against some piece of shit that's threatening your life, right? Yeah.
This is, if I just finish my story off that, because that's the segue into it. It took me 6 or 8 more months of really thinking about and unpacking what he had said and trying to do that in my training. And then I remember one other thing that he said to me about it. And he says, like, your greatest fear now is going to come because you're teetering on the edge. Meaning that when you unleash your deepest beliefs and you put that emotion and that mindset into the physical action, like you manifest that in the real world. So like in training, your fear is going to be that you're going to hurt somebody. Right? So you have a training partner across from you and he goes, you're going to struggle because you're going to feel this. You're going to jump into this, like, this guy's trying to kill me. Like you're going to go into that to get yourself psyched up. And then when you go to pull the trigger, you're going to be like, this is training. Like, I don't want to hurt this guy. And you're going to lose it. The bottom will drop. All your killer instinct flies out the window. But he said, what will happen is he goes, you're going to come to learn something. So then this is a very important point for people. And Dustin and Brad, both of you guys already mentioned this. Greg, when you own it and you flip the switch, he goes, put it this way. When I came at you, could you feel that I was serious about taking your life in that moment because you were a threat to me? And I was like, 100%. Do you have any doubt that my killer instinct, ruthlessness, and viciousness was 100% focused on you and that I unleashed it to its full capability? And I said, I have zero doubt. Matter of fact, if I'd had breakfast before that, I would have probably shit my pants. It was that real. But he goes, were you hurt or were you injured? No. Why? And I said, well, because you pulled your tools. And he said, no, I fucking didn't. When I came at you, it was so real and so visceral that your body reacted. This is what you were talking about, Dustin. You collapsed under that pressure. Like you had the primal startle flinch response. She goes, I didn't have to control my tools in the beginning. In the beginning, what I did was pull the trigger with my intent. And you had the visceral primal flinch, which saved your life. Then once you went into the startle flinch and I was already into it, I already had the enter. I already had you off base and balance. I already had you. Then and only then did I control my tools after. So he goes, there was a fraction of a second in this exchange where I came at you the same way I'd come at somebody actually trying to take my life. It was fucking real. And that both exhilarated me and fucking terrified me at the same time. Because I was like, because I felt it and I'm like, you're right. You're right. Like there was that moment. The control came after, not before. And that's where I was fucking up. This is just what you talked about, Dustin. I was tapping into this and then controlling it when I went to launch it. That's like pulling the trigger on a gun and putting your hand over the barrel to slow the bullet down. Like, that don't make no fucking sense. You know what I mean? Like, the person that's going to get hurt is going to be you for sure. So I remember, like, it took me 8 months though. And then I'll remember I was sparring with that same big dude. And I remember I tried 2-3 times and I got the same fucking result. I got tossed. And then I remember I was just moving around and I just remember sitting there and I thought, you know what? Fuck it. And I didn't say fuck it like, fuck it, fuck this guy. I said it like, fuck it. I'm going to trust what Paul told me. I'm going to trust that if I actually just commit, just do it, full out, full root, just let go instead of trying to hold back on my emotions, my beliefs, my convictions. If I just let go, I'm going to trust. Because you got to remember, this guy had training too. I was training this guy. This guy had been around for a few years. And that's what Paul said saved me, is that not only did I have the primal flinch response, but I had enough training for him to do that at that moment. He knew it. So all I did was all of a sudden I let go, and that, I'll never forget, it was the first moment that I actually went at somebody with the truest intent that if they were a threat to me, I was willing to take their life. And I'll never forget the feeling. And when I pulled the trigger on that and went at him, guess what happened? He did what I did. He primal flinched. He flinched back. He fucking collapsed, went ass over tea kettle. I ran him over, and then I was able to threshold. And I mean, it was an uninterrupted annihilation. It was the first time in 3 years I'd gotten what we call like a clean enter, a clean kill. Like just bowed him over. And I remember it was all because in that one transitional fraction of a second, I was actually able to be ruthless, not use ruthlessness. You don't use it, you fucking are it. You become it. And it was driven from my beliefs, not from evil, not from like, it was those beliefs, and I believe in my right to life. I love what you said, Dustin, about like, you know, but it's between me and God. Like when I leave this planet, you don't get to fucking choose. And that was it. That's when I finally was like, I get it. I finally got. Now, listen, I wasn't perfect at it every time after that. It took flight time to dial it in to where. But Paul would always say, it's a switch. It's on off, but it's not just on off. It's on off with a dimmer control. And I was like, oh, this shit's fucking deep. Now you can throttle it up and throttle it down, turn it on and turn it off. That's good training. And I started to make this point about the safety controls, and I want you guys to talk to this too. What is very important that happens with this is if you're going to have these beliefs that allow you to flip this switch where killer instinct, ruthlessness, viciousness comes out 100% invested, that is connected to our threat cues. That is why we study human physiology. That's why we study body language, behavior, and interpersonal communication. That is why we study the laws in our area, so we understand use of force spectrums. What I'm saying is we understand when we are legally and morally justified in defending our life. And we actually can read a real threat, not a posturing, loud verbal threat that's not truly a threat, so we are not engaging in fucking bullshit. We understand. I know when my life's in danger. I can articulate why. I don't just know it and feel it. I can articulate. Every time we do a scenario and somebody pulls the trigger and they go in, they activate killer instinct, ruthlessness, viciousness, and then the strategy, tactics, and tools to relay injury and potentially take a life. The first question they're asked at the end of that is, why did you do what you did? It's like we interrogate them like a lawyer would. And they don't sweat it because they say, let me tell you about the 10 different body language cues, the 3 interpersonal communication cues, and the 4 different behavioral patterns that I saw that told me he went from trigger to escalation and was about to plunge into crisis. I'm going to tell you why I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was facing imminent grievous bodily harm or death. And here's the next thing. And again, you guys never know what we're going to talk about. Our conversations are not pre-rehearsed, so this will be an organic answer from you. We are taught, one of the things we do is that none of this shit is personal. We're taught how to take personal out of it. When you're defending your life, there's the professional self and there's the personal self. The personal self will get you reacting. You'll get emotionally sucked in and engaged, and you will make dumb fucking decisions. The professional self is trained and restrained and operating off what's happening. So it is not this person in front of me who's this threat, and I go, this guy's a piece of shit. It is an energy. And this energy is a threat to my or my family's life. And so you pull that fucking trigger, 100% invested, full killer instinct, ruthlessness, and viciousness, and you go at that energy. And the second, I don't care if it's 1 hit or if it's 50 hits, the second that energy is no longer a threat, what happens?
Disengage.
You stop, you disengage. How? How the fuck do you guys do that? You're telling me in the blood rush of somebody trying to kill you, this guy's trying to kill you and your family. He's trying to murder you and your family. And you get into this state, flip the switch, and you're going at this guy. And all of a sudden this guy gets hit or whatever. And the guy drops, no more, no more. And he collapses and he's no longer a threat. You're telling me that you guys are just going to fucking stop? How the fuck is that even possible?
Well, it's just as important. Like,
Go ahead.
you know, like when there's no longer a threat, like, so when you're training for violence, like, and you execute on that, there's also all the back end side of things after the event of violence, right? And it's like, if you get to the point where you need to take life to preserve life, and that is no longer a threat, it's like you still need to preserve your life, you still need to preserve your family, and the best thing of survival is to now, therefore, you've defended against the threat, and you remove yourself. I think it's always been on the immense focus of surviving. And
So how do
not
you
about-
stop though? How do you stop the blood rush? That's great, but how do you stop it?
Well, you condition.
That's it.
You condition
Yeah.
you
Training
condition
restraint.
the threat, and when there's no longer a threat, you have to condition to the very fact that it's no longer a threat. Now you are not legally or morally or even justified in continuing on. You have to understand what you're facing, and also, sometimes we put pain penalties in there.
Yeah, but that's important to talk
think
about though. Go ahead, Dustin.
I think I was gonna say, I think too, like, to tie it back into convictions and belief, it's like, again, what is this bloodlust you're referring to? Like, why are you doing it? Why are you going forward? It's not emotional loss of control. It's not anger, right? We talked about it. It's conviction for your right to life. Well, my right to life has nothing to do with someone else dying. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that energy is stopped, I'm alive. That was my whole driving force, was keeping myself alive. I've done that. There's no benefit for me now to kill this person who's already completely out of it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute. Whereas I think most people, though, hearing us talk like this, their reference point is, oh yeah, I go crazy. I black out. It comes from a place of anger, freaking out, a loss of control, none of which are what we talking about. Do you know what I mean? Ruthlessness and conviction and this pressure we're talking about, none of that is a loss of control. It's 100% under control. Like you said, it's trained and restrained. It's professional, not personal, self-driven. So I think that is what allows you to stop, is because, again, it just comes back to, well, what made you go forward in the first place? It wasn't a lack of or a loss of something. It was purposeful for those beliefs, those convictions. So.
Yeah. See, what you guys are saying, unless, Brad, you want to throw something else in?
Just real quick, is like, if you're in your personal self, that is when people don't stop.
Yes. And here's what I want to make real clear for everybody. Like, you both nailed it. Imagine a police officer, and he goes to the firing range, and he goes and he's there, and there's a whole bunch of cops there, and they're standing there, and they're doing their target practice, right? So he takes the gun, he loads the gun, he shoots the target. Now, he takes the gun, he reloads the gun, he racks it, he's ready to fire, and all of a sudden he turns around, and he points that firearm at everybody else that's behind the firing line. What the fuck do you think's going to happen to him? You think everybody, yeah, he's in some fucking shit.
Yeah.
You think that they're just going to laugh and go, whoa, 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 man, hey, fuck, keep it down range. No.
Yeah.
Same thing in the military. They condition, they say, listen, we're going to teach you. You pick that gun up, you see a threat, you point that fucking weapon and you neutralize that threat. But here's the shit you do not fucking do. And if you do it, if you cross even an inch over that fucking line, you won't be a fucking cop. You won't be a soldier. You won't be shooting anything. You'll be fucking gone. You could face criminal charges. There is penalties. They are taught. Now listen, yeah, anyone can snap mentally or emotionally and do shit. That's not the point. The point is trained and restrained. You have a safety catch. Now, safety catches don't always work on guns, and safety catches don't always work on human beings. Human beings can snap. But the idea is that safety catches, they fucking work. That's why they're on there. And they work 99% of the time. You have brakes on your car. Do they always work? Well, fucking 99% of the time. As a matter of fact, for my car, 100% of the time my brakes have worked. I'm 51 and my brakes have never fucking failed me. So the training's the same way. So what Brad was talking about before he mentioned a pain penalty, like we said, when we do scenarios, and they're like shoot, no shoot, you have to make tactical decisions. We have scenarios that are so aggressive and loud and all this shit's happening. There's all these different threat cues, yet legally and morally, you are not justified in executing physical tactics and strategies. And so you have to recognize that. Now, if you fail to recognize that, you are debriefed on that. Why did you do what you did? Tell me what you saw. Like you're cross-examined, and you have been taught all of the legal justification as to why use of force. And if you break that, you are taught. No. Look at this. Do it again. Until you're like, I got it. I learned. We all make mistakes, but we learn our lessons and make our mistakes in training. And then if you have somebody that then executes, pulls the trigger, and then all of a sudden the threat's not there, and they keep going. Even one extra hit, one extra stab, any one extra thing, it is stopped. Or there's a pain penalty, meaning you are given a stimulus that tells you, imagine getting hit this is not how we do it, but imagine all of a sudden you cross a line and you get a cattle prod in the ass. Ah! It's like, and all of a sudden the guy's like, oh, this is not personal. Why are your emotions out of control? Regulate your response. This is a threat energy. When that energy is not a threat, get the fuck out. And so the training is there. So isn't that interesting? You learn to shut off your pity, your compassion, your empathy, your beliefs, and your ability to recognize and read true threats allows you to actually pull the trigger with no psychic, no emotional, no mental restraints. You are 100% invested in living and this motherfucker, that energy, destroying that threat energy. Not necessarily the person, the threat energy. And the second the threat energy is not a threat, it's like it shuts off. Because we are just as adamant in the safe, we are just as passionate and just as convicted about the moral and the legal side of it. And so those forces are working, and you get what? You get professionally trained. I don't want to say soldiers, you get professionally trained warriors. You get a weaponized protector.
I'll throw one more.
Go ahead, yeah, fire.
Throw one more thing on that. Because like you talked about, sometimes it's a pain penalty, sometimes it's just an education. Why'd you do that? This, you explain it to them, whatever. I think a third thing too, a component of it is like another thing that's a part of our training and should be in everyone's training is like, you need to also learn that shit mutates. And I think that almost again ties back into what we talked about earlier about your beliefs and your convictions. Like if you truly believe or have a conviction that, violence mutates, well, you can't afford to stick around when that energy goes down, because they could know other people. There could be other people involved. Like so much could change. So I think as part of the training, you're taught when that energy is down, you get the fuck out, like you said, because that's just a whole other reason why. It's another belief that motivates you to want to stop, to not have a bloodlust, to just keep going, is because it could all of a sudden get a whole lot worse for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What we always say is like, well, the first thing you need to do is remove yourself from the situation. If you can't do that, you need to remove the situation. So when you have neutralized the threat, therefore the situation has been removed, go back to step one.
Yep.
Right? Get the fuck out of there. Why are you hanging around? Why are you punishing? All those sorts of things.
Yeah. Don't stand around and admire your handiwork. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
There's a couple things you said. I just point off it right. Over the years, coming up 30 years with this, but if you have somebody that shows an inability to learn to read the threat cues, they show a lack of compassion in terms of caring about whether they're morally and legally justified, stopping when the threat has been neutralized. If you have people that are not responding to the training, that the safety mechanisms aren't taking, they're showing whether they're just blatantly being disregarded or whatever it is, what happens to that person?
They're done.
They're done.
They're no longer part of the community, the tribe.
Their training stops. You can't hide it. If you have that bad apple, you have that guy that's like just likes it, that has that a bloodlust or whatever it is, they don't hide that. They are weeded out so fast that they don't even, they wouldn't even make a percent. They wouldn't complete even a percent of our training programs, because you can't hide nature. We've been around it. We've seen it so many times. And over the 30 years, how many times have I had to do that? Man, I don't even remember. I don't even know if we've had to do 3 times where we've had to remove people for those reasons. Because good people that would listen to this, people that are interested in this, that actually go, fuck, I need to figure out maybe how to be more ruthless. Because trust me, in a life and death situation where you're outgunned and manned facing violent criminal predators, you're going to need killer instinct. You're going to need ruthlessness. You're going to need viciousness. So this question is very pertinent. You need to figure out how you get that shit. And you want to do it the right way and maintain your compassion. And that's it. But what I was saying is that most people, they benefit of the doubt themselves to death. That's why I shared my problem in the beginning. That's what I was doing. Like, maybe if I can do this to this person and just, hurt them a little bit, or just scare them a little bit, or just, get control of them and neutralize them that way, then I don't have to do any of this stuff. And so you go in there going, well, I'm going to go hard, but not too hard. And what happens when you come up against a murderer who's 100% invested in slaughtering you and your family. You think that works? No, it doesn't work. Unless you got 100 men trying to control one guy, trying to control someone that is like in the midbrain going, I'm going to fucking bite your nose off, you're going to have to kill him to stop him from biting your nose off. Never mind when he's on altered substance and bath salts and he's pain tolerant and all this other shit. People have no idea. I'd tell you a story of 6 cops, big, strong fucking cops, all with over 10 years experience, went out to arrest an 89-year-old lady who stood 5'3". She got a hold of a hockey stick, and every single one of them fucking cops went to the ER after, went to the fucking hospital. One cop had his baton out and was bashing her on the back of the fucking head, and she wouldn't go down. She turned around, hit him with the hockey stick, and split him for 60 staples. Anybody that's ever dealt with somebody who's having a psychotic break or a physical, like a meltdown, like has snapped, you want to talk about superhuman fucking strength, durability, that's what you have to face when people are 100% invested. So if you think that you can take out big, strong people who are trying to murder you with 100% intent, and you can do that without killer instinct, without ruthlessness, without viciousness, you're gonna have a surprise. I had that surprise. It almost killed me.
It's about as likely as trying to negotiate with a rabid dog.
Exactly.
Like, seriously. Just trying to convince it not to attack you.
Exactly. 100% exactly.
Or a 2-year-old.
They're the same.
They're literally the same. Especially when you got no sleep. You're like, I can't do it. Okay. So here's maybe as we can wind up and wrap this up a little bit. Just for clarity, you got to work your beliefs. And there's more than just these 2 beliefs, but in the time span of a podcast, I wanted you to understand, like, do you truly believe in your right to life? And then you have to ask yourself, what's it going to take to protect that? Like, what is it going to take to stand up for that belief? Like, if someone's trying to kill you, you either believe that your life has value and that, like you said, my death is between me and God, not you. And then you have to truly believe, like, listen, I'm going to die right here. If I do not put pause on my pity and my compassion for that just as long as you need it to neutralize the threat energy. Like you said, Dustin, I love it. It's not connected to whether he's still breathing or not at the end of that. That's his choice. I don't get to make those choices. If he continues to fight and continues to be a threat and continues to attempt to want to murder me, then I have to continue to do what I need to do until that threat can be neutralized or I can make my escape. But when you do that, you focus on the beliefs and then being able to bring those beliefs forward. And there's a way to train that. It's how you train it. Allows that, and not just allows it, it demands that comes out, that is brought to the forefront. And then you learn to control all the physical stuff and nobody's being injured. You can totally train this in a safe way, but you got to understand how that's possible. And I guess my last thing that I'll come down to here is that Paul used to always say, like, imagine walking around and, you're just living life and there's threats out there. There's people that would harm you if they're given a chance. But no guns existed in the world. No guns. Nobody had a gun except for you. And you had this 45 caliber Smith & Wesson, and you had that thing tucked into the, you're behind your back, and you're walking around, and, people are in your face and rude, and like antisocial aggression, trying to push your buttons, and you're just, listen, I don't want a problem. And you avoid this shit, and I don't want a problem. And then that one day comes where you have no choice. Remember, devoid of choice, imminent grievous bodily harm or death, predators trying to murder. And that person targets you. And there's no removing yourself. There's no talking. There's no negotiating. And the second that happened, you pulled out that loaded 45. They've never seen anything like that before, and pumped 2 or 3 in the chest, and down that guy goes. That's powerful. Like, imagine that kind of an advantage. You're walking around with that type of firepower, and nobody else has that. Or my scenario, nobody else has it. And remember Paul saying to me, he goes, that's what happens. That's the feeling you get when you really start to understand ruthlessness, killer instinct, viciousness. When you start actually working and building your beliefs to the level of conviction, and then you learn to develop the switch to turn it on and off. And then you learn to put the dimmer control on it. And now you're walking around and you are literally walking around armed with the power of beliefs. And those beliefs are connected to love. And the last point that I'm going to make is when you explore this vehicle, this weaponizing process, this vehicle that allows you to get in touch with the violent side of your nature, the killer instinct, the ruthlessness, the viciousness, understand it is not a straight line, and it's not a half circle. It's a full circle. It's a front and back of a coin. You, in the process of becoming connected to the violent side of your nature, cannot do it without equally becoming more connected to the compassionate side, the empathetic side. Does that make sense? Like I'll bring it back to my story, I guess. Paul, when you meet them, that thing that puts you at ease, they're like, I feel like I've known this person my whole life, like that we're family, like they would do anything for me. It's fucking real. It's real because that's the other side. When you understand violence and you see the horrors of it and you see the damage and the destruction and you understand what it takes for you to go there to defend your life against it, it's a darkness. But you can train to be okay in that, to walk into that, to wade into that and do what needs to be done to preserve your way of life and your values and your morals and the people you love. And what balances it when you come out of it, you see the beauty in life more than other people. You have a gratitude and appreciation well beyond other people. I mean, like my whole life is about weaponizing people for violence. And yet I can't stomach watching anything violent on TV. I don't watch violent movies. I don't watch violent TV shows because to me it's like this shit's real. It's happening to people. I don't need to see it depicted for entertainment. I want to watch shows where people are laughing and people are connected. My viewpoint of the world is that the majority of people in this world are amazing people that would do such amazing things for complete fucking strangers. Yet there is that dark element. And I don't fear that dark element. I understand that dark element. And if that dark element crosses path in my life, I'm prepared. They will be shocked at the darkness that I will bring to that situation. But it's done out of balance. And that's important. I think it's so important that like I wouldn't have the empathy or the compassion or any of that stuff to the level that I have it in this world. I would not be the man that has that levels if I didn't have this vehicle that got me in touch with the darker side of my nature. Because Paul said, I'm quoting Paul so much tonight, but this is the stuff that he shared with me that allowed me to figure this stuff out. He said, the guy that you want to be afraid of is the guy that represses everything. Because that's the guy that snaps someday and ends up with a sniper rifle and a bell tower. The guy that has the vehicle, the guy that is in touch with it, that knows how to express his darkest, most violent side of his nature, you never have to worry about that guy because he understands how to express it. He understands how to regulate and control it. It becomes a tool for him. That's the light switch analogy. Turned on and turned off when legally and morally justified. And that guy is equally, because if he can do that, he's equally balanced in compassion and love. He'll be the easiest person to talk to. And many, many special operations guys that you meet, these guys that are, moving straight up killers and hardcore and in there doing this, these are some of the nicest, quietest, most compassionate, like, it's hard for you to see they have this other side, but when they flip the switch, when they go operational, when they come out of the bubble bath, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different animal. That's it. This is how we do it. So that is how, for me, I overcame, or learned to become ruthless without giving up my compassion. Anything from you guys? Any final thoughts?
No, not me.
Yeah, no, I'm good as well.
Okay. All right, you guys, let's wrap it up here, everybody. Listen, thank you so much for joining us again here on the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Don't forget, you can not only subscribe, don't forget to subscribe, leave some comments, leave us a review, a rating. This is how that helps us to reach new listeners. Our podcast is growing, and it's growing because people like you are taking the time. It takes a few seconds to just rate us. Give us 5 stars if you enjoy it, please. Write a comment, just your thoughts on it. That is what helps us expand. It is starting to happen. Don't forget that you can also follow us on YouTube at Awaken the Protector Within. You can check out our YouTube channel if you like to watch the podcast. There's going to be a whole bunch of new content coming up there. There's already some stuff up there. Facebook, all of it's there. And don't forget to check us out. You can see it at the bottom of our screen, awakentheprotector.ca. Lots of free content, lots of free training, lots of cool stuff happening. Check out our 90-day intensive if you're interested in weaponizing. We'd love to help you along in that process. So that is everybody. Until next time, please stay safe, stay weaponized, and we will chat again soon. All right, everybody, have a good night. Hey, thanks so much for listening. And listen, if you found this content valuable, here's 3 different ways that I can help you weaponize for free. First, grab a free copy of my ebook, The Education of a Weaponized Man. To get your free copy today, head to ebook.awakentheprotector.ca. Number 2, you can take a free workshop where you will discover the 10 insights violent criminals don't want you to know. To take this workshop, head to workshop.awakentheprotector.ca. The third way is to head to my website and check out all of my freeline programs that cover everything from mindset to strategies. To check us out, go to awakentheprotector.ca. And finally, leave a 5-star review so that we can reach more good people like you who are ready to weaponize and rise regardless.